Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando Leduc, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in.
Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall. I'm Adrian Ferrara, filling in for Armando Leduc. Today we are joined by Tim Cassidy, who is the co-founder and CEO of Online CE Credits and the host of the Quiet Millionaire podcast. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adrian. I'm happy to be here and grateful to be talking with you this morning.
Can we start off? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Online CE Credits?
Yeah, so myself, I'm basically just a regular guy that walked into some really interesting circumstances. I'm a lifelong learner, so you'll kind of see later with the business how that kind of fits. Went to college at the University of Oklahoma. Ended up getting a federal job, which lasted for 14 years. But during that time, I got an MBA at night. So just kind of kept going with the education. And then odd thing enough, I'm out of school for a few years and I'm kind of, off and on the dating websites. And I find this one woman on there who I end up going on a date with, and she ends up becoming my partner, my wife. And I find out later that, one of her cutoffs was he must have an MBA or must have a master's degree to make the cut. And so I had no idea that, going to the University of Central Oklahoma at night while I was a federal worker actually qualified me to be in the running to marry my spouse. So I got married in 2012, and then we had a child in 2014. So we're a small family. There's three of us, just one child. So I come from a family myself of two brothers, parents, middle class, grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My dad was, the classic boomer, work your way up in one company and stay there for 40 years and then retire. He's retired. And right. My mom was, classic setup again, mostly a stay-at-home wife, but had a good upbringing. So kind of fast forward to really around my 13th or 14th year in the federal government. I got a young child, a wife, and she's a Fed at the time. And I think the turning point that really turned us into entrepreneurship was she got a hold of the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, which is a seminal book on really changing your perspective on life and business and what life can be if you're willing to do things differently. And from there, we just sold everything we had. We were in a suburban home in Oklahoma City. We sold everything. We had an infant at the time, sold all our possessions, sold our house, moved into an apartment, just started living small. And really from that point, it was like, okay, where do we want to be? Where do we want our home base to be? Turned out, my wife's from Kansas City, so there's a lot happening there. We were in Oklahoma City at the time. So we decided to move. We moved. Move into a townhouse, like really, that's one of our things with kind of making room for businesses, just kind of living a lifestyle that lends itself to not having to worry too much about chores, upkeep, things like that, and really kind of trying to stay minimalistic. So we moved to Kansas City, and the political climate changes. Trump comes into office, and then we start getting furloughed. There's this one point where we got furloughed for 45 days without pay. And that record, I think it was 40, maybe 39 or 40 days without pay at the time. I think that was in 2018. And that record has since been broken. But that was also another catalyst that kind of pushed us into, okay, we've been building this business on the side, and it's a side project, but here we are thinking that the federal job is really safe and secure and untouchable. Right. Well, when I got furloughed, it changed everything. So what ended up happening from there is I quit my federal job completely, turned my federal retirement savings, flipped it into a regular IRA, and went into the business full time and scaled it. And then here we are in finishing up the 6th year, because I kind of look at 2020 as the first year where I just dove in head
Right.
full time, because I left the government in August of 19. So, and really that takes us up to online CE credits and building and scaling from there. It's really, it's an online CE company for mental health providers. So I, again, started it kind of on the side. How we get into it is my wife is a psychologist. So
Oh, okay.
psychologist. She went to school at Stanford. She got her doctoral degree there. I met her in Oklahoma because she was doing residency there. So she had started teaching CE courses for different companies back in like 2014, 2015. And I said, we should put your courses on a website and try to sell them ourselves, build an audience. Both of us kind of came up with that idea. And my idea for the whole thing, because I'm a business guy, 2 business degrees, kind of have a business mind, even though I spent a lot of time in the federal sector, is, let's put it on a website, let's build an audience, and let me run it and see what we can do with it. So I actually, when I jumped ship from the federal government, decided to go back to school for the 3rd time to become a counselor, a licensed professional counselor, so that I could then, in a sense, become our customer. So I could kind of learn how they think, what their challenges are, and also have my own private practice on the side. I don't see many clients at all, but it keep my license active, and it's a really good way for me to kind of be all in the industry with both feet, so to speak.
Right.
So yeah, so that's how we got into the business. Started out in 2016 as just putting her courses up, pennies, nickels, and dimes here and there. And then when I jumped ship from the federal government, just started scaling it, and a lot of stories from that point forward.
Yeah. And when clients come to online CE credits, what are some of the problems and pain points that they're experiencing that online CE credits is helping them solve?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because the thing that makes the business model really good and sustainable is that these are required CEs that they must have to maintain their license. So it's not optional for them.
Right.
So then the question becomes, how do you as a business separate yourself from the rest? Where do you stand? Are you a platform that's just going to provide these, minimally or just good enough CEs that they can get quick and fast and cheap to maintain their license and fulfill their requirements? Or do you want to be something more? Do you want to really focus on skills, giving them skills that they can use to overcome stuck points, become better clinicians, and ultimately serve their clients, their patients in a better way for more longer sustained outcomes for them? So in terms of pain points that they have, a lot of our customers who are mental health providers, they're burnt out, right? They work long hours, they see a lot of clients. Sometimes they're in agencies where they're not getting paid that much, but they're working really, really hard. And mental health is all about self-care. But the irony is that a lot of therapists, they don't take care of themselves. They
Mm.
get compassion fatigue. They wear out because they're carrying the burdens of others all day long. So one thing we try to do is kind of be that resource for our customers, these mental health providers, to be able to overcome that burnout in a way that really fosters them getting to know themselves as professionals and really what they're capable of, and to show them that when they come to us for CEs, yes, they can fulfill their requirements, but they can also get reinvigorated. We try to provide trainings that are um, led by world class teachers, instructors, inspiring teachers, instructors, not just the classic evidence-based CBT, CPT, or whatever modalities that are, relatively well known and tried and true and not interesting. We try to balance those with cutting edge, interesting angles, interesting sort of new cutting edge approaches to therapy to try to get them more interested and more committed and more believing in themselves to really become a clinician that is energized, that
Right.
is excited about what they do and can really see their mark on their clients to change their lives and thereby kind of give it back in the form of giving the clinician energy to keep going.
Well, and you used a term that I would love you if you could define a little bit more for us. I would love it if you could define it a little bit further. This idea of compassion fatigue, I think, is
Mhm.
really interesting. Can you explain what that is a little bit?
Yeah, so this phenomenon of compassion fatigue is interesting because it's pretty nuanced, and I don't understand every piece of it. I haven't done really in-depth research on it, but at a basic level, it is essentially a phenomenon that occurs where um, a therapist who by nature is someone who is attentive, always attentive to their client, um, kind of the receiver of energy, not only information but energy of those clients. And a lot of times that energy is either chaotic or really intense in terms of emotionality. So when these therapists are receiving those feelings from their clients in session, um, they oftentimes will begin to carry those burdens
Mm,
themselves on their own minds. So thinking about, oh, I wonder how so and so's doing. If they don't, if they don't turn a corner soon, I'm wondering if I'm helping them or not. Just because clients go through a lot of horrible, horrible things. I mean, especially if you work in certain areas of clinical mental health, certain populations that are more vulnerable that go through more intense situations. Um, well, think about a therapist who's doing this not only with one client,
right.
but two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, day in, day out. So you are constantly tasked with receiving this feedback in session and trying to um, hold it and really synthesize it to be able to give your service back to the client to help them heal. That is extremely taxing on a person. And so what
Right.
sometimes can happen to people is they can get really, really, really tired. And it happens kind of sometimes they don't see it coming until, they're just completely wiped. And then they don't have anything left when they go home to their families to be able to be there for children or spouses because everything they have is given during the day in their sessions.
Mm,
So it's this concept of fatigue, which is not just, oh, I'm having a bad day. It's every day I'm depleted, and
right.
this is now who I've become as a professional. And the compassion, the idea of compassion is just that is the role of the therapist, is to be compassionate, be caring, be someone who can um, really empathize with a client that they have in session.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how for some, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not balanced, you can fall victim to that sort of phenomenon. And oftentimes it's really happening a lot, I think, because there's a shortage in the industry now.
Mm,
So many more people in need, but fewer clinicians to serve those needs. So it then becomes a lot on one person's shoulders, which contributes to the
right.
idea of compassion fatigue really happening more often than not.
Yeah. And can you speak with us a little bit about online CE credits scaled pretty swiftly, didn't it? And can you
Yeah.
talk about what it was like to navigate that?
Yeah, it was really really fun in the very beginning because well, it was fun. It was stressful at times, but the initial scaling period was about 3 years. So what happened in that period was starting kind of at the beginning. Let's go back to the time where I'm out of the federal government. I'm sitting at the desk, day one, right? Online CE credits is my full time job. What are you going to do with it? What's your identity? Where's the paycheck going to come from? Or where's your money going to come from now that you don't have a paycheck?
Right.
Well, what I started doing, because I knew the most important thing I needed to do is figure out how to get eyeballs to the website. And so, yes, I have a business mind, but I wasn't naive in the sense that none of my schooling really prepared me essentially to be an entrepreneur. It really just prepared me to think like a business person.
Mm.
And honestly, they prepare you to be an employee of a corporation. Which here I am, here I am, sort of at the helm of what I want to become, something of that nature, a corporation, so to speak, right? So, how do I get eyeballs on the website? How do I run an e-commerce platform? I went to YouTube
Mm.
and just started doing a bunch of research. I got a few books and started reading books on e-commerce, because the way I conceptualized it was I'm running an e-commerce platform of info products,
Mm.
right? This is a I can think of it as a product-based business, but my product is an info product. They're courses. So how do I sell these at scale? How do I get people on the website? The biggest thing I did that started the scaling process was I went out to all of the licensing boards. We have an assistant, Kristen, she still works with us. Her and I built this big spreadsheet where we said, okay, what are the names and email addresses of every single licensing board, mental health licensing board for counselors, psychologists, LMFTs, social workers in the United States, in all 50 states. We build this spreadsheet. Then I have her go out and basically just say, hey, I'm wondering if you guys would like to offer your licensees free access to free courses on our platform. As we're new, we're looking to reach more clinicians, and we have quite a bit on the platform to share. When we'd like you guys to be able to provide some resources to your clinicians. Do you have email roster you'd be willing to share? Of course, a lot of them say no. Hey, we're not going to give that out. All it took was 3 or 4, maybe 5 states to say yes. And I ended up with something like 90, 70, 75,000 email addresses.
Wow.
So what we start doing from there is, through my research on YouTube, I figure out mail merge, how to send cold outreach emails using Gmail, but using a mail merge system to overcome the sending limits that Gmail imposes.
Mm.
And I end up using a platform called Gmass, which I still use today. It's awesome for cold outreach. So just start sending free courses every 2.5 weeks with follow-up campaigns. Well, here's the crazy thing that happened. Around this time, the pandemic happens, right? So
Right.
all of this converges where everyone's going home. We had just rebranded. One thing I did when I first started full time is we rebranded the website to Online CE Credits. Everyone goes home. They're searching for CEs online, CE Credits online. Well, that's the name of our company. And it was like this, all these stars aligned, and everyone's at home looking for online courses. I'm here sending out freebies to all these people's email addresses. Then all the civil unrest, the George Floyd situation happens.
Yeah.
Well, we had just hired 2 or 3 speakers during this time to give workshops on racial justice and racial trauma. So I take those courses and I start sending them out for free saying, hey, this is a timely topic. We need to be educated in these areas to help our clients that are racially traumatized. And it just people just start coming in, taking these courses. Now, mind you, we end up giving away something like $50,000 to $60,000 worth of free courses in the first year. There wasn't a whole lot of money coming in at this time period, but people were coming in, eyeballs were coming in, people were using the website, which is what I cared about in the beginning. It's hard though, because you don't see money right away.
Right.
But once you reach this this critical mass where this minimum threshold, and I made sure we had our email systems optimized where people were getting nurtured. At the time, I think we started using Klaviyo, which we still use today. Then the money starts coming in. So it was by 2020, what was it? 2023 was our first $1 million revenue year.
Oh, wow.
And then in 2024, we end up hitting 2 million. So that was really the apex. And then at that point, we started actually kind of slowly kind of coming down. And the last year in 2025 has been all about, figuring out what's the next phase, because every business kind of goes through this phase where you have that initial scale period. And for us, it was 0 to 2 million. And then there's going to be a second push. You're going to start to decline, and you got to figure out why, and then make your second push, which is right now in the business cycle. That's right where we're at, is we're making that second push starting this year. So we've kind of stopped the bleeding, and now we're shooting back up again. So that's really how that first period of scale worked. And it was a 3-year period, and it was crazy to just, first of all, watch the website grow. And then second of all, watch the stripes just go from,
Right.
maybe like $1,000 a month to, I think at one point, I think our biggest month has been like something like, I want to say $200,000 in the month.
Wow.
Just crazy to see to see that sort of growth.
Yeah, and I'm curious, when you're experiencing that sort of growth in that, in that succinct of a time span, how do you ensure that what you're doing and that scalability, how do you ensure that that scaling is sustainable, right? That you're not being overwhelmed by it. What sort of fail safes did you have in place to ensure that you just weren't, overwhelmed by that success?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think us having the podcast here that's going to kind of live evergreen, this would be a point at which I really would want someone to hear this, because I didn't hear it, and we suffered for it. And that's kind of what we're, for lack of a better term, fixing right now. The answer to your question is there was literally no fail safe, right?
Mm.
The media buyer I was working with that helped me scale, he's just a dude in Canada, in Toronto, some 20-some-year-old dude in a basement. And he cracked the code with Facebook ads. That was primarily our engine to scale.
Mm.
That and email. He started out as our email guy, and then he's like, I'll try Facebook. And we were still pretty cost conscious. So I was like, yeah, let's tack on an extra $500 to your invoice, and let's try Facebook. Well, he cracked the code, and stuff just started happening.
Yeah.
Well, the website, it never broke, but his philosophy was, we're scaling hard until something breaks, and then we fix it and we scale again. That is a philosophy. It's not a bad one. It's one we took, but the break, so to speak, happened on the server side. So our server that we had was not really equipped for the level of traffic that we eventually started to experience. And so the website, kind of the performance degraded. But it was an easy fix because we just went to another managed server host and we're able to fix that overnight. But here was the real pitfall. We were at the mercy of the Facebook algorithm, the meta algorithm. When it was hot, baby, it was hot. But there were some things that happened. The what do they call it? The iOS update, and then recently the Andromeda update, where if that algorithm changes even just a little bit, all of a sudden your ROAS, return on ad spend, could go from 6x to 2x. At one point, 80% of our revenue was coming from Meta. And that is the real pitfall. When too many of your eggs are in one basket and one channel, and you don't have control over how productive that channel is day in and day out, boy, you're sitting on really, really unsteady ground. And the big wake up call for us was that very thing.
Right.
And so we've been spending really the last year and a half trying to even out the amount of weight that each channel carries for the overall business. Now Meta only carries like 40%, 35 or 40% of our revenue. And so those two things, the server piece, we never sacrificed service, customer care. I was running the care desk for a long time. I've actually only been off of it for about 2 years, or a year and a half maybe. And so I always made it a point, even through the hardest times of scaling, to never falter, never waver in how responsive we are to customers to help them. And another protective measure is we were really, 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 really effortful in when we stand up courses or stand up new pages, testing. When you run a platform like this, testing is paramount. You want to make this thing as watertight as possible so that you're not getting constant tickets on, oh, hey, this course is glitchy, or this quiz broke, or this question doesn't work, or doesn't make sense. If you test and you really iron out that stuff out and you put it out there with a 99% belief that if you get a ticket, it's going to be the customer's, it's going to be user error and not our error, that really helps with scale too. And so we never suffered there. We never suffered on the customer care side, never suffered with content. People love the content. Speakers are great. Having our library stacked with really, really good courses, never been an issue. It's been 100% the marketing piece for us.
And I'm curious, can you dive in a little bit? We've kind of spoken a little bit about online CE credits. Before we wrap up here, I'd love to talk a little bit about the Quiet Millionaire podcast.
Yeah, so that kind of started, just me being on podcasts like yours, just really enjoyable to sit down and talk and share stories. And I thought, what would be a good angle if I wanted to be on the other side behind the microphone? What would be a good angle that I could cover that I really don't see out there already? And it's this concept of really coming into a situation that I came into where I grew up middle class. I was employed in the federal workforce for a decade and a half as an employee. Just average Joe kind of dude that worked hard in school and got a lot of degrees, married the right partner, and now here I am, basically became a millionaire in 3 years. And I wasn't loud about it because I don't have I'm not like a type A personality or someone that really, I almost feel kind of sheepish about it, almost like embarrassed in some way to share it because I don't want to like separate myself from other people. So it's this idea of being quiet or having a quiet approach to the whole thing. And so I thought about the Quiet Millionaire podcast as a way to capture those stories where people come from backgrounds like mine, but they end up having a certain set of circumstances and having an opportunity to start something like this. And now here I am in this world of entrepreneurs where, yeah, there are people like me, but there's also the people that are super narcissistic and, 100,000 times more successful and richer than I am. And it's just this dynamic world of different types of millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires in business. And the angle for me that was the most interesting is this idea of kind of coming into it from a background that's more common folk, more common.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. If anybody out there listening would like to tune in to the Quiet Millionaire podcast, if anybody out there could use the help of online CE credits, where can people find you?
Yeah, so if you want to check out the podcast, we're on Spotify. Go out to Spotify and just search up Quiet Millionaire podcast, and you'll find it there. My name is attached to it. So check that out there. If you want to find me in particular, you can find me on LinkedIn. I believe my link will be out there in the show notes. If you want to find our website, or if you have friends or family that are mental health providers that serve those populations of people that looking for mental health services, and they need CE credits, have them just go directly to onlinececredits.com and take a look at the platform. So super easy to remember that. But yeah, reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to chat.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been fantastic. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. I've had a great time talking to you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Spaghetti on the Wall, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Tim, thank you again.
Thank you, Adrian.